And welcome to the Teacher's Room on Tuesdays here at the International Teacher Development Institute, iTDi. And we're into week 3 of what Phil and I were saying might be thousands of teachers. Who knows? You never know when you start these things. Tonight's special guest, Michael Free from Korea, who I've known for hours and hours now. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really nice to have you. The first two that we had, I kind of knew them for a few years, but I've known your name and I've seen your name, but this is the first time we've gotten to know each other. So thank you very much, and welcome from Michael Wilkins. We see Anne is here. Anne always gives us an update of her energy level. She's at 76% right now.
Yeah.
And that gives us an idea. Anne's a young learners teacher, so she spends a lot of energy. And now we got Michael Busy and Michael Busy 2. So I'm going to get rid of Michael Busy 1.
What is...
And
There's too many Michaels. We need more Anns. That's what we need. Ann, why are you only 76%? That's not a passing grade in Korea, Ann.
there you go. So she's just getting back to after the summer vacation, so she doesn't have her power battery stored up yet. So anyway, Anne, do you feel like typing, or do you want to just sit back? Anne was over in the What Did We Learn About Michael Free? Anne did that for us one night, and so it's up to you, Anne, if you're... Okay, take a break. Yep, that's fine. Anybody else? Michael Wilkins or Michael Busy 2 or anybody? As we, over on the far right, we've got this What Did We Learn About Michael Free? And if anybody wants to kind of add the minutes, then people who come in later have a chance to see what we've been talking about. So we'll just leave that a little bit as a free-for-all. Let's begin right at the beginning there, Michael. Why don't you tell us, give us your resume. When did you start? Where did you start? What have you done? And what's left of you at this point?
Wow. I'm so old, so there's a lot to say, I guess. First, let me say, if you can't
Good.
understand what I'm saying, it's because I've just come home from the dentist, and the left side of my face is still perhaps a little bit frozen. It feels okay, but if I'm slurring my words, It's not because I've been doing anything naughty. It's just I've been in a dentist chair for a couple of hours today. So let me see, my teaching journey, I guess I started in the mid-1990s, which is really literally last century. When I was doing my first master's degree, I became a teaching assistant, which is a pretty typical way to start teaching. And I found that I really enjoyed tutoring and teaching people. And when I moved to Montreal, I worked for several years at McGill University teaching not English, not exactly English, but music history, music appreciation, and basic music theory, sort of liberal arts undergraduate courses. And I found that teaching was really something that I loved to do and I wanted to do as my vocation. So,
Sorry. Let me interrupt you there. How long were you teaching before you realized that you wanted this to be your vocation?
I don't know, maybe an hour or two. It was pretty quick. Once I actually started having my own courses, it was pretty apparent to me from the get-go that this was what I wanted to do.
Wow, wow! Because I taught for a full 6 years just for a job, and I remember very specifically one day feeling like, wow, I really like this. I like going to work every day, and I think I'm going to become a teacher 6 years after starting. So I'm very jealous you knew right away.
Well, that's part of the reason why I came to Korea was that the job market here back in 2006 when I came over was really quite good. So I could pay off those horrendous student loans and do the job that I loved. And as well, it wasn't just the money. I also took a look around my life a little bit and thought, I could stay in Canada, which is really nice. I could live in Montreal, which is really excellent. Or I could maybe take some time and go and live in a completely different place. So I sold everything I owned and got on a plane and got a quickie TEFL certificate and ended up in the northeast corner of South Korea, just about 40 kilometers south of the demilitarized zone, in a fishing village of 9,000 people, and me, one foreigner. That was me. So that's how I ended up in Korea. At that point, I was working in the public school system.
Sorry.
Yep.
Did you choose Korea, or were you assigned Korea?
I chose Korea. It was between
how'd that happen?
It was between Korea and Japan, and I threw a dart at a map, and it hit Korea. So I came here.
Is that true?
Well, we could say it's true. That's actually how I decided that I was going to be on the East Coast, was the dart on the map thing. But really what I talked to a few people who had taught in Japan and a few people who had taught in Korea, and what kind of pushed me towards Korea was the food, actually. Very meat and potatoes and lots of barbecue, and if I stand up you'll see that that's been horrible for my waistline. Yeah. So
you got to Korea in 2006. You were up in the little town with 9,000 people.
Yeah, 9,000 people on the coast. Lots of fishermen and their children. and I was working in public school, so I was teaching elementary school, middle school, high school, and because I was in such a rural place, I was teaching at 4 or 5 different schools every semester, so I would be running around quite a bit, which was really, really quite interesting. And now, more recently, for the past 3 years, I've been working at the university level, so I've kind of covered pretty much everything, I think. Little ones,
Yeah,
not quite as little as the littles that Anne deals with, but all the way up from
right.
kindergarten to grandmas and grandpas.
Yeah, yeah. Cool.
My first class.
Do you
Mhm.
go? Yeah, go
My
ahead.
my first class was actually a kindergarten class, and I had no idea what to do. I had never seen children that small ever, and they they were all staring at me, and I had no idea what to do. So we sang a little song, and they loved me. So it was good, but it was nerve wracking because there were a lot of them, and they were really, really small.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was going to ask you, like you, I've taught kind of every level as well, and I have a few that I can do, but I might not enjoy as much as other levels. How about you? Do you think any kind of level or context suits you better, or has that changed over time?
I actually like having a mix. Some people got when they found out that they had to work at different schools with different grade levels. They got quite upset, but I liked having a mix. But now, maybe because I'm older, I do like it being a little bit more focused in one area. I don't prefer any any particular group to another. The only the only situation that really gives me pause is all boys middle schools I taught at one for a year, and it was just mental. 7 700 of them, and they're all you know certifiably insane, have no interest in anything other than girls and who can punch each other the hardest. So yeah, middle school boys are they're challenging, but
Tough. Yeah. Phil Brown, my partner here in the teachers room, taught junior high school in an all boys school up in Tokyo, and we've often shared stories. And I would have guessed who can punch each other the hardest, and girls being the absolute obvious two points of interest.
oh yeah,
So that's,
I mean,
yeah, I get you on that.
I love them. They were awesome, but they were horrible students. I mean, I guess I shouldn't say that. We might have to edit that out, I guess.
Okay. um, so you're at are you at a woman's university now?
No, I'm at a national university in Chuncheon, the capital of Gangwon province. So it's a modest provincial university. I guess we'll put it that way. I just arrived. I'm just about to start my second semester there.
I see. And are you teaching like more than 1 year? Or are you teaching first years, or what? Describe what you're teaching there.
The main load that we get is freshman English. So it would be either year one or year two students that have to they have this hoop that they have to jump through. They have to take an English course. So most of my classes will be with them, but I am working in the English department. I've got a class on speaking and debate, which should be interesting. And we also do some dormitory classes. They call them dormitory classes. It's at the global dormitory. It's where students who are going to be going away to study in different countries or work in different countries after they're finished. So there's a little bit of variety, at least.
Yeah. We got a question in here, and everybody, like, feel free. I'm just working off a list of ideas I have, but I'm keeping my left eye focused on the chat and my right eye focused on Michael. And so if anybody has questions, feel free to, this is a bit of a free-for-all, jump in. You see Michael busy too, asking what does modest? You said it's a modest unit. Is that size? Are you meaning size-wise or what?
No, I mean the school ranking is not not in the top 10.
Yeah. Gotcha. And then Phil came in and talking about the junior high school boys.
Yeah.
There we go.
Well, I was the same way. When I have students that I look at that sort of, we all have them, you just kind of shake your head and go, oh, what am I going to do with this person? I remind myself, yeah, that was you when you were in school, because I was the worst student sometimes.
It's called karma. Karma.
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to ask you. Oh, so in Japan here, one class is 90 minutes, and on a contract, in my last job, I was teaching about 10 of those a week. So 2 or 3 a day. What's the teaching load at the Korean universities for in your kind of contract?
Mine is pretty standard. It's they keep us all of the visiting professors. That's our job title. Is we all have 18 hours per week.
And how? So 18, 8 is that? How long is one class?
The freshman English classes are 2 hours per week, so I'll do 5 of those, and then I have 2 other ones. The speech and debate class that I mentioned is 4 hours because it's a little bit more intensive, and the dormitory classes are 4 hours.
Got it. So that's comparable. As I said, mine was 10 times 90 minutes, so that would come to about 15 hours.
Yeah, 18, as far as I know around Korea, that tends to be the average, or it has been historically. Things are creeping upwards now, though. The contracts people are seeing are, it's the same money or less money, and the hours are going up to 21 or 22, and some places it's actually kind of ridiculous. There was one job posting I saw where it was going to be 28 contact hours, which is
and it's hard to.
I mean,
hard to survive.
By the end of that, you would just be so completely exhausted.
Yep. Okay, I think I've got a kind of picture of what you're doing there, and what about class sizes? What was the last thing?
30 is the average.
Yeah.
For the main classes. For the dormitory classes, it's 15. So that's a little bit better, a little bit more conversationally oriented.
Yeah. Cool. Okay, here we go. We're going into the toughest part of the whole thing.
Oh, no.
Gets easy after this next one. When we talk about teacher beliefs, now you've been teaching in Montreal and now in Korea. Anywhere else you were teaching?
Nope, that's it.
And altogether, is that like about 12 years or more?
Well, I've been in Korea this is my 12th year here, so it would be around 20 years total.
Okay. So, how do people, here it comes, how do people learn a language? What are the big strokes in your mind of what's important? What do you try to get across, or what do you believe is important enough to affect the way you teach?
I'm looking at the picture of Michael Griffin here because Michael Griffin would be able to come up and improv some sort of virtuosic response to this question, and I really.
So Mike, he's the blog boy, right?
Yeah.
In the picture.
Yeah, he's in the middle. He's great. He's the guy who looks like Fred Flintstone a little bit, at least to me.
Yeah, he does, yeah.
How do people learn a language?
So I know this question's really difficult, and we tried this with a whole bunch of seasoned teachers. Mm-hmm. What do you believe? And it's just kind of what are the first few things that come to mind.
I was musing on this question today, actually, because all the other questions are quite okay. Yeah, I know what I can say about this. I know what I can say about 5, 6, 7, 8. But how do people learn a language? I was thinking that this might sound perhaps a bit flippant or sarcastic, but I don't really mean it in either of those senses. I think people learn a language out of necessity. If they have a need to learn that language, then that, to me, in my experience, is what will make them actually do it. I've had kids who were one kid I remember he was just a little guy in grade 2 elementary school, and there was some question as to whether or not he had been developmentally, he was a little bit stalled, a little bit behind the other kids. His performance in English wasn't really good. He probably had ADHD. Now we might diagnose him with that. But once I found that he liked dinosaurs, if he wanted to talk to me about dinosaurs, he was amazing. If he needed to talk to me about what was in the textbook, forget it. But dinosaurs, he was all there. So I mean, and when I say necessity, it can be extrinsic necessity. If people want to get a job. When I got here in 2006, the answer to the question, why are you studying English, was almost invariably to get a good mark on the college aptitude test, the SUNU, we call it here, which is a horrible, horrible exam and should be scrapped. But I digress. And now what the answer is escape. Because a lot of Koreans, they want to not only travel, they want to live and work abroad. They don't want to be here anymore. The reasons why that is sort of complicated, but that necessity motivates them to learn. So I think, I guess we could say it's motivation. If they're motivated to do it, they will do it. That's what I've found. If it's just a hoop they have to jump through, or it's just to get a test score that's quite high, that doesn't really seem to do it, at least not in my experience.
Yeah.
As to how our brains actually
so
do it, I have no idea, which is a horrible thing to say.
Yeah, of course. How much did you know about dinosaurs, and has that improved at all?
My knowledge of dinosaurs? I can't say it's really affected my life profoundly, but it did make that student really, really happy. So yeah, he would, before we had the dinosaur breakthrough, he was, a little bit troublesome, not outrageously so by any means, but after that, he and I were good friends. Which was quite nice.
Which is all about connecting as well, right?
Oh, I'm glad Phil agrees with me. Yes.
Yes. It's interesting that you start with necessity, and I agree 100%. I haven't heard people introduce it that way, which is nice. It's a new thing for me to think about. Does that, and my second thought was, okay, so if he believes necessity, does he use that to try to create that or promote that? Do you make a sales pitch to students, or do you look for what's needed, or how does that manifest itself?
When I can, it's not always possible to do it, but because the classes that I have that I had last semester, they were all grouped by the same major field of study. So I would have the math education class, and they were all going to be teachers. And then I had the horticultural and forestry people who were going to learn about forests or something. They couldn't really tell me, and I didn't really know. So the way this course is based is it's sort of a presentation English skills thing. And what I tried to do with the math class is say, look, you guys are all going to be math teachers in the future. And so what I want you to envision when you're giving presentations is, when you're learning about presentation techniques, is to remember them, because you'll need them when you're in front of the classroom eventually. And they all looked at me and they were sort of, wow, so English, this class is going to be useful? That's, who'd have thought that? I also had a class full of music majors. My undergraduate is actually in music, and my first master's degree is in music criticism, the most useless of all master's degrees, I think, in the history of the university. And I would relate everything through music to them, and we would talk about this, and instead of talking about their best friend, we switched the topic so that they could talk about their favorite composer. and that way, you know, I could relate it to their actual field of study, and that seemed to work for a while, but they weren't really too super keen on learning English, but sometimes that works. You try to look for some connection and some relevance.
Yeah, that's great. You notice Phil has dropped in a dinosaur link for everybody's benefit later on.
Yep, dinosaurs are pretty cool.
Okay, let me. Where do I want to go? I got more on this belief stuff. It's just hard to dig it out. The class is either working with you or against you. Do you ever feel that?
Occasionally they're working against me, but that tends to be more individual students. Sometimes, occasionally. I would say it's more they're working with me or they're not working at all. You know, they show up, they have to go to class. The attitude in this modest university is that if they show up, and actually that's pretty much it. If they show up, they're gonna pass. That's kind of their attitude. And you kind of have to push them and cajole them and bribe them and somehow get them to do it.
But hopefully, if I think a similar situation in Japan is there are teachers who care about what's going on in the classroom, and there are a bunch of professors who might not care so much. The teaching the classes is the necessary evil part of the job that they have to put up with. Mm-hmm. They'd rather be back in their office reading or publishing something or researching something. So there seems to be the students are able to suss out the teachers that want to be teaching versus the teachers that don't want to be teaching. Is that true there?
That happens over here, and again, because the majority of these courses are required courses that they have to take whether they want to or not. The students here like to look for the professor who's the easiest, who's the nicest, and who will just, okay, come in, sit down, we'll have a chat and a coffee, and you'll get 95%. Now, while I'm pretty affable, that's not really my style. If you want to get an A, you have to actually earn it. I don't set the bar outrageously high, but you do have to do a few things in order to get that. So I might not be their favorite teacher, maybe, but I'm okay with that.
But probably they get the idea that you care. Yeah.
I hope.
Can you talk to me a little bit about textbooks? Do you use textbooks, and how do they fit into your overall teaching view?
The textbook that we have for the particular course I was just been talking about is actually pretty good. I tend to modify things and personalize them and adapt them to the class whenever I can. Books like Touchstone and Interchange are pretty good, but they're pretty dry, and you want them, if you're doing a presentation skills class, to actually have them practice a lot with things, and that means you don't want to just give them the answers that are in the textbook. Some students are like, well, what's the answer? I said, well, I don't know. What do you want to say? Well, what's your idea? And then once I know what your idea is, then we can work that out. But it's not a there is one correct answer type of situation with languages.
Are you expected to use textbooks all the time, or is that up to you to decide?
It's up to us whether we do or we don't. The students prefer it. The students like to have that as sort of an anchor. They're very used to having a textbook. So I do use them, but for some other courses, I taught the dormitory English class last semester. We didn't use a textbook. We watched TED Talks. We looked at art. We sat in a circle and just talked about stuff. We made plans for which countries they wanted to visit. We did wall charts, a whole mishmash of things. So that can work as well.
Oh, that sounds 1,000 times better to me than a textbook, personally.
Okay.
Yes, no?
I mean, in a perfect world, yeah, I would love to have something where I wasn't anchored to a textbook. At the last university I was at, I had the opportunity to teach a course in film, and it was a content-based course, so it was kind of film appreciation. I called it film aesthetics, but it was really film appreciation. There was no textbook for that, but that was fabulous. I had Kieran Donaghy's book, Film in Action, I think it's called, and a couple of CLIL activity books. But I would make things up, and the students really liked what I did. They told me they liked it anyways. I don't know if they were just trying to get a better mark.
Oh, I'm sure they did. Yeah.
So I mean,
was that an awful lot of extra work for you, or was it?
It was a lot of work. The content-based course was a lot of work, but once you've done it once, then it gets easier if you do it again. I taught that course 3 times. So I did one semester. It was all zombie films, which is awesome. One semester was all vampire films, and one semester was more of a general type of film appreciation thing. But yeah, the zombie one was fantastic.
Yeah, I'm absolutely sure it would have been. Excellent, excellent. Let's move into this question about some of your influences, and I just want to start with a little shout out to Barb, who Barb's in the room. Sorry, Barb.
Oh, no.
Barb Sakamoto. She's in Okinawa right now doing some teacher training, but we talked about Barb just very briefly this morning. That you've known her for a bit, but tell me again, what was it you liked about Barb? Let's embarrass her.
Oh, well, now you've put me on the spot. I can't remember what I said this morning because I was pre-coffee. I think it was just basically that she was amazing, and just the way she communicates with teachers is so natural, and it's not academic and jargony and very distant. She's very, very approachable, very agreeable, and has a lot of experience with what she's talking about. So she's similar in a way to Scott Thornbury, a person you can have a chat with, and you're not going to be intimidated to go up and talk to her. Oh, there's Barb Sakamoto. Can I go up and talk to her? I don't know. What will she do? Will she hit me? No, she's great.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what you said this morning before the coffee, so that was really good.
Is it? Wow, that's amazing.
So let's carry on with that. And I mean, I love Barb completely, and it's all you hit the nail right on the head. Is that she's both an expert in what she's been doing for years and years, and just one of the most helpful, supportive people. Yeah. And I know lots of backstories of the kinds of support she's done for teachers all around the world. So, yeah, keep blushing, Barb.
Yep, you should. Yay, Barb.
Yay. So how about some other people who either their writing or their persona, or who's influenced you as a teacher? Well, and tell us a little bit more about Michael Griffin, because I've met him just once, but he seems to be somebody on your radar. So let's give him a bit of a shout out as well.
Yeah, just well, looking at the pictures here,
What's his
you can
influence
see
on
me
you?
grinning like a Cheshire cat when I'm in between Stephen Krashen and Paul Nation. That was in Vietnam last year at the English Teachers Association of the Republic of
Taiwan.
China conference in Taiwan, and I managed to get a snapshot after dinner, and I got a chance that day to hear Paul Nation speak for the first time, and he was quite amazing. Another very very clear, plain English speaker. He was talking about vocabulary development. But also the amount of research that he's been doing into that is absolutely fascinating and amazing, and it's one of those things where it clearly relates to what he's talking about. It's not abstracted so much that you're left shaking your head and going, "Well, that sounds like it could be interesting, but I'm not. I'm gonna have to think about that for a while." So.
Yeah.
I quite like him. The first time I ever met him, he gave me a book. He had no idea who I was. He just like, "Oh, hey, here's a book. I'm finished with it. You read it now." And I said, "Oh, okay. Geez, thanks, Paul."
Yeah.
But
If Phil Brown can drop in the link for Paul Nation's homepage, he's got the homepage on the University of Victoria Wellington, I think.
yeah,
But
yeah,
just for anybody in the audience who doesn't know Paul, Paul's the gentleman on the far right of the picture with Michael in the middle, and on when we're looking at the screen on the right side.
yeah.
I was going to say they're both. You can't compare their baldness. They're both getting there.
Indeed.
But yeah, when I first saw Paul Nation the first time, I think there were 700 people in the audience, and he was leaning against the podium holding one A4 piece of paper and had the mic on his sweater and talked to it. Yeah, mesmerized us for 60 or 90 minutes.
Yep. Yeah. It's quite obvious that he knows with a great deal of erudition and precision what he's talking about, which is good.
Yeah.
It's good to hear. Crash and others. Let me see. Well, yeah. When I was thinking about this question today, as I was on the bus and my face was unfreezing, I thought, a lot of my influences are really the other teachers that I meet at conferences, not necessarily the big names like Nation or Crashen or Thornbury, but of course Barb, of course. But it's people
And
like
Griffin.
you can see the blog boy Michael Griffin, who's been bouncing around Korea and the internet for several years. People like him, they really inspire me because he's so curious. He's genuinely curious about what other people think. He's genuinely curious about the profession of teaching and learning about it and communicating with other people about it. And you have the young lad next to him, Stuart, is one of the most energetic people that I've ever met. So I try to steal some of his energy, and just your I guess you could call them the rank and file teachers. Even people like Anne. I try to siphon off a little bit of Anne's niceness every time I see her because she's so nice, and I'm a grumpy old bugger. So I have to, I try to steal a little bit from everybody, but not too much.
Yep.
Yes, you, Anne.
Yeah, no, the front line teachers on the front lines, hey, who keep at this and stay fresh and stay motivated. And I guess, I love curious people. I'm not I wouldn't call myself so curious, but just some people and yeah, I get that from Michael Griffin as well.
Yeah, he's
I think they're lucky to be born so curious.
Yeah, he's very fond of saying, "Oh, Michael, I don't agree with you, but tell me why. But tell me why you think that." Which is, it's nice to hear that as opposed to, "Oh, you don't think the way I think? Well, I'm leaving then. I'm going away."
Yeah. No, it's great. So we talked a little bit earlier on the tough questions about beliefs and things like that. So um, when you start a new class at the beginning of the year, what are some of the things you try to set out, either directly or indirectly, messages to your students or your expectations, or just grab anything you can hang on to in terms of how you approach the classroom?
Yeah, well, we are coming up to that time of year where we have to dust off the icebreakers and the first impressions, which are so meaningful. I mean, the first thing I try to do is I put the textbook, if I have one, I put the textbook down, and I just walk around and introduce myself and ask the students questions. I do kind of what I did last semester was, went around and asked every single student in the class a question about this or that, or, about their shirt or about their major or about, whatever, anything from do you have a cat to, what's your favorite food, what's your favorite season. And then I went around again and I said, because Korean students are sometimes very reticent to actually speak, especially in front of other people. I said, okay,
Yep.
now you all ask me a question, all of you. And,
Good.
some of them will give me, the same questions that I asked them, just because they want me to go
Right.
away, which is fair. Okay, that's a strategy. And some of them,
Do you have a cat?
some of them some of them want to ask a question to try to throw me off, or vaguely inappropriate questions where you kind of go, really, that's your question for me? Well, yeah, I'm not actually going to answer that, because you don't need to know about
Yep.
that. I'm not going to repeat what the
Yep.
question was. One guy kind of floored me because he looked up at me. He was completely earnest and he said, "Do I believe in God?" That was his question. I'm like, whoa, that's a heavy question for the first day of class. But we go around and my intention with that, I think, is to set the mood that there's going to be interaction between us. And if you have a question, if you want to ask me something, come and ask me something. As for expectations, they do need the expectations for the course really laid out for them in quite plain and simple English, and that's where I go back to the thing that some people hate, but I don't hate it, PowerPoint. And we go step by step through everything that's going to be expected of them, what the mark breakdown is, how they get, whatever marks, what they mean. I also give them my contact information, and I beg them not to message me after 10 o'clock at night, and some of them always do. But that's okay. So it's sort of, there's two things that in that first class that I'll do. One is to kind of set the mood as being, conversational a little bit, to where they know that I'm going to be walking around the room, I'm going to be asking them things, and I'm going to expect that they actually talk to me when I ask them. The one thing that I won't, I do what I say, I won't tolerate it, is the no answer. Korean students, I don't know if they do it in Japan, but some Korean students will just go, oh, pass, or next time, next week, later. And I just shake my head and stand there and say, no, you gotta give me something. Even if it's just one word. I know it's weird and you have to talk to a foreigner and you don't like English because you had to go to English Institute for years and years and years, but just give me something and we'll go from there.
Yeah. Oh, good. You're giving them expectations. You're being clear. You're moving around, connecting with.
But at the end of the semester, I always wonder, didn't I explain that to people? Because people are asking me questions, and I'll say, well, go to the class website, and you'll see all the information is right there. Oh, really? We have a website?
Yeah.
You know the thing that I use every class? That. Oh, we can go there? Yep, you can.
Oh, there you go. Huh. So this Friday I'm gonna be doing I think a 75-minute workshop with 50 fresh off the boat, arrived in Japan like 2 or 3 days before I meet them, and they're going to be sent out through the Board of Education to work in elementary and junior, senior high schools.
Fresh.
So there's still straw in their hair kind of freshness.
Yep.
And so
meetings like that.
Yeah. So I've thought in this to jump ahead to this 4 skills thing, question about any tips that you have or any things that come to mind if we just go through the 4 skills: reading, writing, listening, speaking. Anything that you always do or anything that you've learned about. Let's start with reading. Is there anything that you've learned from teaching that as a skill that you want to pass on to our newbie teachers?
Well, yeah, let me see. With reading, I don't teach a lot.
Sorry, do Korean kids read?
Not
Japanese kids don't read
anymore. Not enough. The thing about reading that I try to encourage the students to do is to read a little bit every day. To go to sites like Breaking News English and find their level and then go one level underneath so that it's very, very easy to read. You know, the whole extensive reading thing. To do that and to do that every day. This goes for any of the 4 skills. A little bit every day. Do it. Don't just read about it. Like, actually go and do it. And especially with reading, you know, read stuff out loud. That will help you with your pronunciation. Read stuff in funny voices. Read, you know, if you're at a lower level, a lot of my students are at a bit of a lower level. I say, you know, get an elementary school, you know, Dr. Seuss book and read it to your little brother or your little sister. You know, do that because that will help you, and your little brother or little sister will love you. So you can do things like that. As for writing,
and certainly finding things. Okay, just one last on the reading thing is I've got friends who it's back to your dinosaur story. You know, I've had students say, I'm allowed to read about fashion. Yeah. And I'm going, yeah, you're allowed to read about fashion.
Oh, yeah.
You know, because they...
Yeah, go ahead.
Because it's just been such a painful... Everything they've been reading about in high school and in reading textbooks, and
the textbooks,
you know, has sucked the joy out of reading completely. So with the internet now, there's no excuse not to be able to. I mean, I'll help them find stuff if they're that, you know, desperate. But so I think finding something you're interested in has to be way up there in terms of motivation.
Yeah, sure. And we also did one extra class that I had to do. We did reading where we sat in a circle and